Hey guys, what's going on? I'm coming back at you with another collection video, continuing where I left off from last time. And I'm just going to get straight into it today and try to get through 10 releases. But the reason I'd like to get through 10 today is that some of these are more sort of well-known releases, so there's not as much of a need to talk about them in so much depth, I think. However, having said that, I think a lot of these releases, despite being relatively well-known, I think a lot of them don't get enough credit, the credit that they deserve. So I'm still going to talk about them a little bit, and hopefully this won't go on for too long. But let's see how it goes, eh? So here we go. The first album today is The Abyss with The Other Side and Summon the Beast. The Abyss is a Swedish black metal band formed by Peter from Hypocrisy. Obviously, Hypocrisy is a very famous, renowned Swedish death metal band. And in addition to that, Peter is a well-known producer and owns the Abyss Studios, so that's the name of this band. It actually involves all three members of Hypocrisy, so Peter, Michael Hedlund, and Lars, who's now left the band, but this was back in the mid-90s. And essentially what it is I'm not sure if they swapped instruments, but it's the same three members, but instead of playing death metal or melodic death metal, they're going for a purist black metal sound on this album. Obviously, Peter is no stranger to black metal, having produced so many legendary bands in the scene. And he was also involved in a black metal supergroup in the late 90s. Some of you may recall that band was called War, and they released an album called Total War. And then after he left, it continued in some other form and they released, We Are War. But anyway, yeah, that's another story. The Abyss is far superior to that, in my opinion. This is more of a serious project, I think, and they're just going for that purist, no frills black metal style, but it's precisely executed, perfectly played, production's sharp, the riffs are sharp, it's just fantastic. But obviously, since they're from Sweden, the band has a distinctly Swedish sound, and I think if you're a fan of Swedish black metal like myself, I'm sure you won't be disappointed by hearing this, particularly if you like some of those old guard bands like Dark Funeral, especially Old Dark Funeral, Infernal, the band which was formed by ex-Dark Funeral guitarist Black Moon, and there was one other, The Black, yeah. So bands like that, Old Dark Funeral, Infernal, The Black, if you like that kind of stuff, you will like The Abyss. Additionally, there is some Marduk influence, I think, and that's no surprise because Peter not only produced Marduk, but he also played in the band as a session member. So if you just like that super precise, fast, aggressive Swedish black metal sound, you will love The Abyss. So I'll just show you the inside. So there's the back, song titles. So this is a double release, 2 albums, The Other Side and Summon the Beast. Comes in this nice slick digipack. So you've just got some liner notes there and the disc, nothing else inside, no lyrics or anything. And both albums are stylistically similar. The first one though, The Other Side, that has a hint of more melody. So it's like the bands I described, but also with tinges of bands with that melancholic melodic sound, such as Sacramentum, Dawn, Dissection. So imagine those previous bands I mentioned, the fast, aggressive ones, with tinges of those melodic, melancholic Swedish black metal band, and that's essentially The Other Side. So great album. What I like, it's fast, but they also have breakdowns. There's mid-pace sections, a lot of atmosphere as well, which is great. The other album, Summon the Beast, that's even closer to the Marduk sound, I think, where particularly the album Opus Nocturna, which is of course legendary, classic, fast, raw black metal album. So if you like that album, you'll like Summon the Beast. And I think it was the first couple of songs anyway, they had that real Opus Nocturna vibe to me and reminded me of songs like Autumnal Reaper from Marduk's Opus Nocturna album. So no complaints here, no nonsense, straightforward, fast, aggressive Swedish black metal. Brilliant. So that's The Abyss with The Other Side and Summon the Beast. Up next, shifting gears. This is an album, unless you've been in hibernation for the past 40 years or any part thereof, you've probably heard of this band and this album. none other than AC/DC with Back in Black. Everyone knows who they are, or you should know who they are. If you don't, that's a problem. Not a lot to say about this album. It's legendary, it's classic. If you haven't heard it, rectify that. You should go and hear it. It's one of the highest selling hard rock / heavy metal albums of all time, I think, and with good reason. AC/DC is just a no frills, no nonsense, solid, straightforward hard rock band. So obviously the hits from this album, the singles were You Shook Me All Night Long. I'm sure even non-metal, non-hard rock fans have heard that. Also Back in Black with that legendary riff, another great song. Hell's Bells, great song, one of my favorites, and Rock and Roll Ain't Noise Pollution was the other one. But this album essentially is all killer, no filler, not one disappointing song. If you just like sleazy, guitar-driven, rhythm-driven hard rock with great riffs, you won't be disappointed. There's not one track I dislike. People remember it for the hits, and Shoot to Thrill is another one that people like, but some of my favorites, I would say, What Do You Do for Money, Honey? It's got that big anthemic chorus. Giving the Dog a Bone, great riff, great backing vocals in that song. Let Me Put My Love Into You, really solid hard rock song with some good backing vocals. And my absolute favorites on this album, sort of the unsung heroes, Have a Drink on Me. The part when that song reaches the bridge and the climax, the breakdown with the backing vocals and the riffs, it's just awesome. I love that song, Have a Drink on Me. And the other one, Shake a Leg, that's fast, it's upbeat, it's got a great solo and great chorus, just infectious. So not one bad thing to say about this. You guys have probably heard it already, but if you haven't, for whatever reason, that's your homework. I bought this album in 2000, just after I saw them live in Sydney. That was the first time I'd seen them live, and it was a life-changing experience. Fucking awesome, great band. And the funny thing is, as I get older, I like AC/DC more and more. This was one of the first bands I liked when I was younger, you know, with Thunderstruck and so on. But I get into this more and more, and when you see my vinyl collection, you'll see more of their albums. So AC/DC, Back in Black. Yep, Angus on the disc. So moving on to another relatively well-known band. This is Accept with Restless and Wild. If you like your traditional metal and you've never heard Accept, another problem. That's your homework. Check out this band. I was late to the game with this band, but making up for lost time, it's great. So this album, Restless and Wild, it's not their debut. They had a couple in the late 70s, but this is when they started really gelling as a band, I think. So this album got a variety of tempos, some slow songs, some fast songs. I should just give you a brief description of the band. If you have no idea what they sound like, the way I always describe them to people is it's like a more metal version of AC/DC. So the vocals are very similar, that sort of raspy, screechy style of Bon Scott or Brian Johnson, but Udo Dirkschneider, the original vocalist, he has this distinct voice, really raspy, it's fantastic, and it just suits the aggression of this band. So you might have heard some of the famous song Fast as a Shark. That's a like well-known, renowned, brilliant song by this band. But again, no bad songs on this album. Relatively uninteresting inner sleeve there, just with the liner notes and song titles. Totally boring disc. Okay, and there's the back, band performing live. So if you like bands such as Metallica, AC/DC, Motorhead, definitely check out this band. And they have a distinctly German sound. They don't sound like a typical American or British band. They've got something, and I think even though the Scorpions are more sort of a hard rock band, I think they take a lot of melodic influence from that band, but they just make it sort of harder and more aggressive. Some of my favorite songs on this, so Restless and Wild, the title track, is great. Ahead of the Pack, Flash Rocking Man, Get Ready. They're just those typical hard and fast heavy metal songs, which are great. But in addition to that, they also have really sort of slow, heavy atmospheric tracks as well, such as Neon Nights. I love that song. And Nights with an N, not a K, so different to the Black Sabbath song. and also Princess of the Dawn, which has just got this hypnotic, catchy riff. That's the closing song on this album. And also they have another song which is sort of a bit more poppy, Don't Go Stealing My Soul Away, but just with the delivery that this band does, the way they play, it's amazing. So if for whatever reason you've never heard Accept, check them out, but there are other albums I'm going to talk about. So this is a great one, Accept with Restless and Wild. Up next, another Accept album. This one has no logo on the front. This one's Balls to the Wall. So again, many of you may have heard this. This is probably their most consistent album. This is their crowning glory. See, I think this is a remastered copy I've got. You see the picture of the band performing live on the back, and there's some liner notes about the history of the album. So band photo there, song titles and stuff, background. Yep, so talking about the history of the album and the band. Oh, yep, and they've got lyrics too, so yep, there you go. So this one features some other classic songs by Accept, so namely the title track, Balls to the Wall. The first time I heard that, loved it, great riff, great video clip too, where you see the band all performing on stage, and it's got this interesting part where you see all these people headbanging against a wall next to a wrecking ball and knocking the wall down. It's classic, and fantastic backing vocals in that song. If you've never heard Balls to the Wall, check it out. Brilliant. Like, every song is good. I'm not going to read all of the song titles because they're all damn good. Just a solid album. But some of my favorites, apart from Balls to the Wall, Love Child, Turn Me On, good lyrics in that, Turn Me On. And what else? Losers and Winners, great track, just awesome riff in that. The backing vocals, again, just sensational. This band really has something that no other band has. What else? Guardian of the Night. Check out this album, I implore you to do so. It's awesome. Accept Balls to the Wall. Udo there on stage in his glory. So, up next we have yet another Accept album. This is Metal Heart. Even though I said Balls to the Wall was probably the most consistent, the most solid, this one, it will always be my favorite. The reason being it was the first I heard. Incidentally, the first time I ever heard anything remotely about Accept, it was via Dimmu Borgir. So, on their EP, Godless Savage Garden, they did a cover of Metal Heart, and that was the first time I heard that song. And even at that time, I didn't know who the cover was by, but I liked that song, the way it sounded, very grandiose and epic. So you can see why a symphonic black metal band covered it, because they have like organs or keyboards in that song, and it's got this very sort of epic, galloping feel. So that was a great song. And then in Australia, when I was shopping, I'd always read about Accept, and when I was in a record shop in Sydney, they had a bargain bin with all these sort of retro 80s bands, like hair metal bands and heavy metal bands, and this one was in the bin for $10. Grabbed it. One of the best buys of my life. Like, this is my favorite Accept album of the three I'm showing today. So you have Metal Heart, the title track, which is just epic, great lead guitar work in that. And this song just builds and builds, the first few songs. Like the second track, Midnight Mover, great riffing in that song, just pure energy, excitement. You've got that German sound. Only thing is, the video clip for that song is quite annoying because they show this sort of mirror maze effect, and it's just, it diverts your attention away from the music. But anyway, the first time I heard it, I heard the music alone, which was fantastic. Up to the Limit has just got this razor sharp strutting riff and chorus, and the great thing about Accept is a lot of, like AC/DC, it's driven by the bass and the rhythm section, so you hear that. Up to the Limit, that's a song that I like to play. I get pumped up by that song. Then it gets even faster and more intense with Wrong Is Right, with a great chorus, brilliant song. And then after that, Screaming for a Love Bite. This is interesting. That's when they go a bit more melodic. Some of the riffing in that song, it's a bit like Van Halen, reminiscent of Van Halen. The one thing about that song, Screaming for a Love Bite, it's one of my favorites because the guitar solo in that is just an eargasm. It's so damn good. Too High to Get It Right, that's on side B. That's got those anthemic backing vocals, which Accept are famous for. By the way, there are some bands which are just brilliant with their backing vocals. Def Leppard is one, Accept is another one, although the style is very different, but it's just really choral and loud and anthemic, so great song. After that, Dogs on Leads, good song. Teach Us to Survive, that's sort of an aggressive one. Not one of my favorites, but okay. But then Living for Tonight, that goes back to that strutting, razor sharp riffing style, the same as on Up to the Limit. And I think that's a little bit reminiscent of the melodies of the Scorpions, but of course it's harder and more aggressive, and just a great song, like another strutting song, good song before going out to party. Gotta hear it, Living for Tonight, so check it out. And the last song, Bound to Fail, very anthemic, very epic with choral vocals, just the perfect closing song. So I love all of the 3 Accept albums I've shown you, and probably in order I would say, yeah, as I mentioned, this is my favorite, followed by Balls to the Wall, and then Restless and Wild, but none of them are bad, so check them out. Up next, continuing in the 80s, so more of a hard rock album. This is Ace Frehley with Frehley's Comet. Most of you should probably know Ace Frehley. He was the original lead guitarist in Kiss, the Spaceman, and after he left the band in the early 80s, and this was the first album he released some years later after that. This is a little bit different to Kiss, but yeah, 80s hard rock, and maybe some elements of hair metal, but just good classic solid hard rock. And famous songs on this album, Rock Soldiers, and also, which is one of Ace's most famous ones, great anthemic rock song. And then Into the Night, which was written by Russ Ballard. This is the one they released a video clip to. I love that song. It's the epitome of the 80s with the keyboards and the atmosphere. The singing, like Ace's vocals are great. So those 2 singles, Rock Soldiers and Into the Night, that can get you started. Show you the inside here. Some lyrics, logo and stuff. Disc, nothing special. Tracks, and so there's Ace there and the rest of the band, so they're wearing matching jumpsuits with lightning bolts. It was the late 80s. So no bad songs at all. Some of my other favorite ones was a song which Ace wrote with Eric Carr, the second drummer of Kiss, the Fox, rest in peace. And Breakout, that song appeared in a different format on a Kiss album called Car Jam, a tribute to Eric Carr. So if you hear the riff in that song, it's actually from Breakout as well. But anyway, great track. We Got Your Rock, Love Me Right, Calling to You, Stranger in a Strange Land, not to be confused with the Iron Maiden song from Somewhere in Time, is just a great straightforward rocker. I love that song, great riff. The vocals, the sentiment, it's just pure rock, so gotta love that. And 2 tracks on this album, Something Moved and Calling to You, they were actually sung, the lead vocals sung by the bassist Todd Howarth. The rest were sung by Ace, but Todd Howarth has got more of a traditional 80s hair metal voice, but those songs are really good. Like, there's literally no song I dislike on this apart from maybe Dolls, where it's very synthy and it's a little bit sentimental and soppy, but as always with Ace Frehley, the songs are always catchy, so you can't help singing along anyway. The last track, Fractured 2, that's an instrumental continuing from his 1978 solo album, where he did that brilliant, awesome instrumental called Fractured Mirror. I think he outdid himself on that one actually, because all of the subsequent ones he's done, they've been good, but not as good as that. But Fractured 2, this would be my second favorite after Fractured Mirror. So again, I feel this album, it's got a lot of credit over the years, but maybe not as much as it has deserved. So if for whatever reason you haven't heard it, check it out. That's Ace Frehley with Frehley's Comet. Next, another Ace Frehley album, Trouble Walkin'. This was from 1989. This album was the least commercially successful of all the Ace Frehley solo albums, that's my understanding, but it's a damn shame because it's a criminally underrated album because it's just so good. The songs, to me, this song is all killer, no filler. Like, nope, not one bad track at all. Like, obviously there are standouts, but not a bad track. The production is great. It's loud and clear. Like the first song, Shot Full of Rock, just full of energy, fiery, fast, great lead guitar work, as always. They include a cover of Do Ya by ELO, which is fantastic. Some of my favorites, I would say, on this, the title track, Trouble Walking, is just infectiously catchy. The chorus, the strut of that song, you've got to hear it. 5-Card Stud, Too Young to Die, just classic Ace Frehley. And interestingly, there's a cover of his former bandmates, a cover of a Kiss song, Hide Your Heart, which was featured on Kiss's Hot in the Shade album. And this was released in the same year, and Kiss, they play that song in a very sort of flashy way. But fair enough, they were the ones who wrote the song. But Ace's version is a bit slower and more jangly, has more swagger, but great cover. The original by Kiss is great, this cover is great, so check it out. And Remember Me, a bluesy live song, fantastic. And continuing with that Fractured tradition, he ends the album with the instrumental entitled Fractured 3. Yeah, to me these Fractured songs, they're a bit whatever, but after the first one, but enjoyable nevertheless. But I implore you, if you have not heard this album and you like hard rock, check it out. Extremely underrated album. Ace Frehley with Trouble Walking. Up next, yet another Ace Frehley album. This one's entitled Anomaly. And there was a big hiatus. This one came out in 2008, so nearly 20 years later. The reason being that in the mid-90s, Ace rejoined Kiss for the reunion tour. He was involved in other things, so he put his solo career on hold. But when he came back with this album, wow, it was just firing on all cylinders. Great album, loud production. This is probably more metal sounding than any of his other albums, just with the distortion and the loudness and the riffing and everything. But at the same time, it's still got that those classic Ace Frehley vocals. Sound like they haven't changed since 1978, and I mean that in a good way, because his vocals are just awesome. So this one, it's a digipack outer cover, and it's got this weird fold out thingy, which is a bitch to put back together, by the way. But yeah, you have the disc in the middle, and then the booklet where it has just the liner notes and credits and a poster of Ace. Very cool. Again, no bad songs. Like it's got a classic 70s sound. When I say that, like, a lot of these songs I reckon he could have written in the 1970s, so he's not reinventing the wheel in the sense that he's not feeling, oh, I should depart from what I'm good at. So everything is very 1970s, but heavier, so it's just really cool. So many good songs on this. Foxy and Free, Outer Space, which is a very heavy metal-y song. Well, some of my favorites are Genghis Khan, Too Many Faces, and Sister. If you love Ace's 1978 solo album, you will love these tracks too. Just awesome with that 70s sentiment, flavor, and atmosphere. He does a cover of Sweet's Fox on the Run. By the way, I love that song, the original version, just a classic 70s song. And Ace chooses covers very well. Like Metallica. Metallica's a very good cover band. They have this ability to perform covers and make them sound like their own. And that's what Ace does too. Like, chooses songs which suit his character, and it sounds very good. So Fox on the Run, the original was great. Ace's version is great. Fans of that song will just love that. It's a Great Life is a good one too, sort of mellow. Then they have Fractured Quantum, the closer. The only song I don't like that much is A Little Below the Angels, which is a bit sappy and sentimental for me. But Space Bear is a fucking mammoth, heavy instrumental song. Great riffing in that. So this is his 2008 album. I saw him perform this album, well, a lot of songs from this album, in Australia in 2010, and it was a brilliant show. So very happy to be that part of that history. It was great. So if you love Ace Frehley and Kiss, check out Anomaly. The last Ace album in this series, which I have on CD at any rate, Origins #1. This album, it's the first in a series of cover albums by Ace, so paying tribute to his heroes, his influence, and just doing covers of their songs. So, as I mentioned before, Ace has covered various songs in the past. For example, even New York Groove, that was a cover of a song by a British glam band called Hello. He's very good at covers. This album, I strongly recommend it. A lot of people might say, yeah, cover album's boring, we've heard the songs before. Wrong. Check this one out. It is phenomenal. And it's funny, like when I first bought it, I really liked it, but as I've given it more time, you know, over the years, the months, I've grown to like it more and more. The production is just slick, polished, loud. It just makes everything so strong, and it's just it's shining in brilliance as far as I'm concerned. Performing covers from Cream, Rolling Stones, Jimi Hendrix, Free, Thin Lizzy, Led Zeppelin, The Troggs, Kiss, a lot of 70s and 60s bands which influence his guitar style. Just a phenomenal album, and it's quite funny, a lot of these songs here made me appreciate the original artist more. For example, Rolling Stones, I've always known who they were. How could I not? But my parents were always huge fans of the Stones, so I listened to their records when growing up, and I thought, yeah, they're pretty good, but I've never been a die-hard fan, so to speak. But then when I heard Ace's cover of Street Fighting Man on this album, which is just polished, hard, heavy, powerful, I said, this song is fucking brilliant. How did I ever let it pass me? And so that made me go back and research Rolling Stones even more, and I've come to appreciate them as a result. But some of my favorites would be White Room by Cream. Again, he just blitzes that song. Like, the original is fantastic. I love Cream, I'm a huge fan, but this is just so powerful and blasting, like, it just takes hold. It's great. What else? Magic Carpet Ride. I think that song just suits Ace's character, and the way he sings it, it's great. So it's not only the brilliant guitar work, but his vocals are top notch. Interestingly, he has a lot of guest musicians on this album, so people to join him, famous people from other bands. I won't mention them all, but examples like Lita Ford, she sings backing vocals on Wild Thing. And also the song Fire and Water by Free. Paul Stanley from Kiss does a cameo appearance there. He's the lead vocalist in that song. Sings that song really well. That's a standout track because you just hear that different voice. Yeah, the Led Zeppelin songs, like, you know, all these bands that I liked anyway, but hearing these covers, he just makes them injected with this freshness and this power, which is great. The Kiss covers, so he covers Parasite, which is a song that he wrote, and here the production's much clearer. A lot of people will probably crucify me for this, but Parasite, I love Ace's songs in Kiss, but Parasite is one, yeah, it never grabbed me too much, but it's okay. But anyway, I think this version it gives it justice because it's great production. However, the song which completely destroys on this album is Cold Gin. So, for those who don't know, when Ace was initially in Kiss for the first few albums, he wrote a few of the songs, but he was too shy to sing lead vocals. So the song Cold Gin by Kiss was of course sung by Gene Simmons, and that song is a classic, legendary song. You can't deny that version with Gene Simmons. That's what Cold Gin is basically, but he does his own take on it here. Since he wrote the song, he sings lead vocals, and the production, the loudness, the heaviness, it's just crushing. Like, I think it's just so mammoth, so heavy, so you've got to hear that cover. And that song also features Mike McCready from Pearl Jam, so he gets a lot of guest lead guitarists in who all do a great job. So Cold Gin, one of the highlights, definitely. And interestingly, another Kiss cover, Rock and Roll Hell, which was from Creatures of the Night, which is probably my second favorite Kiss album after Lick It Up, close second. But Rock and Roll Hell, another song sung by Gene on Creatures of the Night, and again, this version is just a lot heavier. I really like it. I think I still prefer the original of Rock and Roll Hell, but this is just an interesting take on it with Ace's cover. So a lot of variety, a lot of different atmospheres, and with these bands I like, you just can't go wrong. So I would urge you to check this out. Don't think, oh yeah, cover albums are boring. Look into it. you'll be pleasantly surprised. And like I said, this grows on me more and more. So it's just a digipack here, song titles on the back, and interesting booklet. So there's a mannequin of Ace in his Kiss days and current day picture. Pulls out. Oh yeah, so it's Ace by the mannequin of himself in Kiss attire from the 70s. Pretty cool. And just some liner notes here, some more photos. Yeah, man, so don't let the idea of a cover album turn you off, because this is a real grower. I really like it. Great bands, great songs, great covers. Ace Frehley, Origins Volume 1. And the last one today. I was a bit late to the game with this band, but we have, can you tell who that is? Aerosmith. So this is Oh Yeah by Aerosmith, which is the ultimate Aerosmith greatest hits collection. When I was about 10 years old, the album Pump came out by Aerosmith, and they had that song Janie's Got a Gun. And at that time, this is when I was just getting into hard rock, so I like Guns N' Roses and Def Leppard. Aerosmith didn't grab me as much as the rest, but I did like that song Janie's Got a Gun. But anyway, over the years when I discovered more extreme stuff, they kind of passed me by. But then, as a result, in the 2000s, when I was getting more and more into 70s music, I thought, you know what? Aerosmith is one of those bands I've always known, but I've never looked into them properly, so I thought this would be a good place to start. Disc here, photo of the band. I'm sure a lot of you have seen this before, and then they've just got a booklet with various photos of the bands and song titles and so on. It's a double CD release, 2 discs, and wow, I always liked Pump by Aerosmith, but then when I listened to this, I heard 70s Aerosmith for the first time and just fell in love with it. Like, I can't believe I let this band pass me by for so long. Just great all-American hard rock blended with traditional rock and roll. If, you know, like for me, I'm a huge Kiss fan, so I heard people say, if you like Kiss, you'll like Aerosmith, even though they're stylistically a bit different. But anyway, the 70s stuff is just out of this world to me. Like, looking at disc 1, 16 tracks, the majority of it is from the 70s, but every single song is good. So I would say all of their 70s albums, which feature from songs on here, are fantastic. I really like them. You got hard and fast traditional rock and roll songs, hard rock songs, you've got some ballads. My absolute favorite song on this album would be Seasons of Wither. Just this really epic track, and it just, yeah, gives me the chills every time. That song, Seasons of Wither, is great. Dream On is another good ballad song. And then you've just got these straightforward hard rock songs which are great, like Mama Kin, Back in the Saddle, Draw the Line. Whoever writes the riffs, is it Joe Perry or the other guitarist, or both of them, I don't know, but they just write some of these most infectious, catchy riffs. The lead solos are great, the interplay with the vocals and everything, it's just amazing. So like, to me, on this first disc on this album, every song I can't complain about, apart from Angel, which was like a sappy power ballad, didn't grab me so much, and the same with What It Takes. But that's from the 80s, so it's like the first 10 songs are from the 70s, so they're all good, and then the last few are from the 80s, and I love those songs, the good ones as well, like my favorites being Ragdoll, so catchy, and Love in an Elevator, just a catchy, fun song. One thing I will say, no offense, the second disc, I just can't get into it. That's going into, so moving out of the 80s, going into the 90s, and they write a lot of big power ballads and love songs, just not for me. But each to their own, you know. I just prefer the 70s and 80s material. But if you're looking for a good starting point for this band, I'd recommend this, because this has made me a fan of the band. Maybe I'm the only person who discovered them so late, but they're really good. So, good starting point. This is Aerosmith with Oh Yeah, Greatest Hits. That is it for today's update. Sometimes I can't help it when music means something to me, so if you've managed to stick out this video, I appreciate it. The next update is returning to some more underground extreme metal stuff. that's the good thing about alphabetical order. There's some variety there. So thanks for sticking by if you watched all of this. I look forward to making the next video soon, and you can expect some more extreme stuff in that. So happy Friday, have a great weekend. Don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe, and thanks for your support. Cheers.